Index card a day, number 17. Every day holds the possibility of a miracle by Creative Katie. Hit the subscribe button in the lower right corner and you won't miss the videos. So this was actually done on a tidbit and tips on how to use gesso to help create texture to your page or card. So in this one, we are using a stencil and we're going to put gesso through the stencil using a palette knife. So if you've watched the tidbit and tips video, feel free to fast forward to where we start actually taking the background and turning it into a card. So I'm using a palette knife and I'm applying a little bit at a time, and I find that this works best. It doesn't seep under the stencil, and you just build up layers, much like stenciling. So I've removed the stencil, and I am going to wash that and get the gesso off of it. And I'm going to give this a dry. Now bear in mind, because you've put fairly thick gesso on, it's going to take a while for this to dry. So you may want to put it aside, get some of the other things ready. Warning, if you get too close, you're going to make it bubble, which can add more texture if you want that kind of texture. So here I'm using my Inktense blocks, and I'm just scribbling on shades of blue and green and teal, and then going to activate it by spraying it with water and rubbing with my finger. And I'm going to add more and more color and blend the colors that are on there until I'm happy with the overall effect. You can use Neocolor 2s for doing the same thing. Gelatos would work much in the same way as these. You can also do this with acrylic paint, right? So if you don't have the exact medium that I'm using, try it with something else. It's going to work. You just might have to tweak it a little bit to get exactly how you like it. But that's the fun part. So I'm drying it as I'm getting it to move and catching some of the colors in the nooks and the crannies. And you can see how all that color and pigment has just made the texture stand out all the more. But I'm not done trying to make the texture stand out. I'm adding more color, pushing it in with my finger. I really enjoy using my fingers to blend with. There's something very satisfying about it. So then I decide to use my Lindy Starburst sprays and spray it on and let it drip and get into the nooks and the crannies and show off. Now the Starburst, if you're not familiar with them, have one color is the spray, and then they have pigment or mica that is a different color. So this one was a purpley teal color. So I'm just adding more in there, sometimes spritzing it with water to make it flow and get into all the nooks and crannies. It's fun just playing with it and seeing what can happen. And with the mica, the metallic shine and glimmer, you just can't get better. I love those Lindy Starbursts. They are wonderful. So you can see all the texture and the shimmer that's created on this card. So there's the other card that's in the tidbits and tips on using gesso to create texture. So I'm getting a little bit of gold, or black first, sorry, black on my blending tool. And I'm just rubbing very lightly to make it stand out. And it looks a little bit messy there, but just wait. kind of edging it as well. And then I'm going to put the gold on top. Now, because I put the black first, the gold shows up that much better. It's a little bit of a thing that I've learned quite by accident, but when you put the darker one and then you put the metallic on top or the lighter one, it just stands out all the more. I am so totally loving this background. In fact, I was very tempted to just leave this ICAD as this and call it done at this point. The shimmer of the Lindy sprays and the metallic paint that I added with the black and the texture, it was quite amazing. So it made me think of angels. Something kind of Victorian, I guess that was the feel that I had of the card. So again, this is one of the free printables that I had printed off. I just went to Pinterest, Googled, or did a search for free printables, angels, and came up with some. Printed them on paper that's just a little bit thicker than regular copy paper. And then I'm doing more fussy cutting. Doing the wings and kind of getting all the detail around the hair and the wings and everything. And as you can see, instead of me moving the scissors, I'm moving the paper that I'm cutting. That becomes kind of the steering wheel. So these little scissors are paper tool scissors that I've used over 20 years ago in almost another lifetime. So I really like that golden color on the angel, the patina on it, and then the background. They just seem to go together. My one regret is that it covered up part of the background. And I didn't want to cover up the bottom part, but it didn't look good on the top. So I printed off the quote onto deli paper, and I actually decided to color the back side because I find when I put the color on the front, the lettering fades. And this worked to a degree. I still had to put some of the coloring on the front, but not as much, and I think it made for a deeper color for the paper. So because this had my Inktense blocks, because it had the Lindy sprays, those are not permanent and they can reactivate. So I sprayed it with Spectrafix, which is a non-toxic, no odor, perfectly safe fixative that you can spray inside without concern or worry. It's a bit pricey, but since I get some massive migraines from the other kind of spray stuff, this was very worth it. So now I'm deciding exactly where all the words are going to go. I think I would like to use this idea that I have for this ICAD and either do this on a canvas or do this on a full-size page. I think that it would look even better because you would see more of the texture because you wouldn't be covering up as much because it will simply be bigger. It's one of the reasons I like doing the ICADs. You know, every once in a while I get an ICAD and it's like, yep, that's a perfect idea for a canvas or a page. It lets you sample, test out different things without fear of wasting a whole lot of materials, and you just have that freedom. You know, I don't know about you guys, but looking at, you know, the blank page or the canvas, it's a bit intimidating. These little flashcards, not so much. And I apologize that I'm partially off frame here. I'm gluing it down with my matte medium. Now be careful, if you have metallic or shimmer and you use the matte medium on top of it, it will dull that shimmer and shine. So if you've worked really hard to build it up, you may want to be a little more careful with the gel medium and not apply it everywhere. So as you can see, I fussy cut around the words and I got rid of most of the paper. Just adding a little bit more gold on the top, just to make it blend in a little bit more. Hitting some of the high points with the gold. As you can see, I've also edged it with the gold. So I'm using my micron pen and going over the letters to just make them a little bit darker so they stand out, because they did get kind of covered with the gold paint. And I'm having trouble with my micron pen. And I switched to a better one. And there's the card. Here's some close-ups.